Liftoff of mission 41D, first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Hey, y'all. That was the weirdest intro I've ever done. What's up? Hey, guys. Trip here from Health or High Water with the amazing Brett Hurtari. How you doing,
What's going on, guys?
We have an amazing guest here, Nikki. We'll get into her a little in a second. We're gonna first thank you for Laguna Coffee. Thank you for Kalevala Labs. Thank you for Gene Planet. Thank you for health profiling. It's on Amazon and Kindle. Thank you. You versus you. Is that it?
That's it.
I
think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Gene Planet. Shout out to Gene Planet, who's hooked us up.
O2 Boost as well. Love you guys. I think that's it for everything. Thank you for subscribing and sharing and all that good stuff. Nikki, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is gonna be good.
Well, this is awesome. So Nikki's got her own company. I just would love to give you a little backstory about yourself. I know we kind of went over this a little bit before, but I'd love to hear your story. I know you've been doing genetics for about 10 years with your company.
Yes.
A little with that, I know we'll dive into that, but I just want to hear your story. And honestly, you got to tell everybody about this Corvette in the driveway, in the parking lot too.
Oh, yes, that's Ruby. Meet Ruby. Better half.
It's red. It's red, by the way.
Red. As I was saying a little while ago, is she right this time of year? She's got all of her top on. Usually we like to have her top off. She's a 1970 red Corvette T-tops, and yeah, she's a lot of fun. She's not a catcher for sure.
I thought it was Tripp's car when I pulled up. I was like, what the heck? JK.
Insurance company's like, yeah, no.
Right.
So
That was my 15th anniversary 15th wedding anniversary gift, which was very sweet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, you got it as a gift, or somebody gave it to you guys?
My husband gave it to me as his gift to me.
Oh, okay. You guys have kids?
No, we have
Okay.
dogs.
Dogs.
Yes.
Dog parents. Okay.
Parents or whatever.
Yeah.
Dogs are people too.
I mean, sometimes.
I heard. I don't know. I heard that. Thanks for taking your time out today. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you to the listeners who are joining us too for the first time on Health or High Water. So you are doing a lot of stuff in the wellness. Your business is Taste Life Nutrition. Your slogan is strategic evidence-based consulting. Why don't you just give us an overview of what you're doing at your practice? Is it all nutrition-based? Is there a component of fitness, an element of you writing workouts? How are you approaching your clients right now?
So I am a functional nutritionist. So the basis of it is going to be nutrition, but I have to say it's lifestyle, right? We can't do one without the other. And so I don't put together fitness plans for people. I tend to refer out for people who want to, to really dig into that. But it is going to be, if you're not moving, let's get you moving. Let's find out what's best for you. If you're not sleeping, let's find out why you're not sleeping. If you're having anxiety, what can be the cause of that? Is it relational? Is it, the environment? Is it, toxicities, whatever the case may be? So that's the goal, is to look, and I want to be strategic in the way that we are finding the underlying cause, right? The root cause of whatever dysfunction is happening. And so most of the time I'm seeing people with GI dysfunction. I'm seeing people with autoimmune conditions. And I work with people when they're doing preconception planning. And this is getting healthy before getting pregnant, right? It's taking that time. Let's mitigate symptoms. Let's understand what's going on. Let's optimize whatever it is that we need to do to ensure that when you get pregnant, you're going to impact the pregnancy. You're going to impact the delivery. You're going to impact the child. And because we are all, genetic, epigenetic nerds, it's going to impact what the data shows is 7 generations ahead. And so we're sitting in this, yeah, it's a lot. It's hundreds of years of impact. And we sit back and we're thinking, I'm just one person. I can't really make that much of a difference, when one person or one couple can make a huge difference in the health of the future.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
What's your background? How'd you get into this, and what's your educational background, and what's kind of like your drive and your inspiration behind all this?
So I have a master's in science. It's actually animal science. I was going to go to vet school, did not. But it has been just a little bit of a journey. I had my own health frustrations and experiences and move through that. And that's kind of, I call myself a health detective. And that's a lot of why, because I was my own health detective. I had to uncover what was going on with me and what I was dealing with and why. And then moving forward, it just sort of all came together where, I started studying nutrition on my, just because I thought, well, this is fascinating stuff, and move forward. I just look at me. See, I told you my brain's not firing. I said that right before we got started. So
you have coffee, by the way.
I probably should have brought my coffee. Anyway, so that was the start. But what has sort of changed? There are a couple of things, sort of that those pivotal points. One is looking at food and understanding food is not just food, right? Food is communication. And then when I started learning more about epigenetics and bringing those two things together, food it has such a profound effect on our body, whether it's good or bad, right? And then once we look at epigenetics and the nutrients in food have an impact on our epigenome, as well as our epigenome having an impact on the way that we break down and utilize the nutrients. Right. And then putting it all together, and we have the ability then to take that and to create health and to mitigate symptoms, and create this health of the future. It just sort of all came together really beautifully.
So 10 years ago, when you were starting this whole journey and whatnot, what made you decide to? I know you're talking a little bit about you're in school, getting this genetics. How did you get into this, using genetics as a tool?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I just found it fascinating. We learned about it, in a very. Here's what I think, actually, what stands out, and I tell this story a lot. There was a girl I was in school with who was a dancer, and she was fit, and she was healthy, and she was happy. And within a short period of time, so it was like within 6 months, she lost 5 family members. So imagine the amount of trauma that her body went through, and it wasn't long after that she started seeing really significant health changes. Significant, like her hair turned gray, and she put on weight without changing anything. As all of these things kept happening, she was sick with all these, mold toxicities and bacterial infections, and she just became super susceptible. And so it's that understanding of what. Not just food, but what lifestyle can do to us and how it can change us and how it can impact us, and then how we can take it and create. Hopefully we take that and create and understand that we have this amazing amount of control, right? We don't have control over traumas in our history typically, but with epigenetics, we have control over what we put into our body. We have control over what we put on our skin and what we clean our homes with and the thoughts that we have. All of these things have the ability to impact our epigenome and impact our health in the future. And so that's probably, and we were talking about this earlier, but the best thing about epigenetics, and to back up, genetics, right? There was a time early, 20, 30 years ago where we had the perception that genetics is who we are and we don't have any choice. Then comes epigenetics, which what does that do? It puts all of it, all of the choices, all of the decisions, it puts everything into our own hands, right? So we are accountable for our health. We're accountable for all of these things that can impact us, and impact our future. And so it's accountability, which is hard, but it's control. It's empowerment, right? It's amazing that I don't have to sit here and say this is the fault of somebody else, because it's all on me.
Can we get a little rewind here on this? So where's your practice at? Are you home based? How does that work? And then also the second follow-up question on that is, do you approach mental mindset? Because you've talked a lot about in the last thing about recovery of like how much that impacted that person who had lost those people. That's a chemical change brought on by grief and stress. And Tripp and I talk about that a lot. So the second part of that question is, do you approach mental mindset, and then how do you integrate that?
So I practice virtually. Yes. There was a time I saw clients in the office, post, COVID, and then post COVID, it just has turned everything virtual. So, I would see people from all over the country or outside of the States before, and now it's just even more so. Right.
Right.
So, my expertise is not the mental and the emotional aspect, but it is certainly part of my intake, so I can have an understanding of where a client is coming from, what their history is. My intake, as I'm sure yours is probably the same, it's very different than what you'll see in, conventional medicine. It's very long. It's very comprehensive, and I want to understand history from prior to birth, right? This is including mom's health and what was delivery like, and breastfed or not, and so forth, up until today. And if we can put a timeline together and we can see this is sort of when all of the symptoms started skyrocketing, what happened prior to that point? It has happened on multiple occasions that there is a traumatic experience. So basically my question is, what are we doing? Are we meditating? Are we praying? Are we exercising? Are we grounding? Are we doing the things to help your mental and emotional health? But have you seen someone? Are you seeing someone? Do you need someone to talk to get you through this stuff? And what does that look like for you? Because it's way outside of my own expertise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you, and you don't have to get into as much depth as you like, but did you have a personal overcoming story? You mentioned the word health detective, which is super interesting because it aligns with another guy we had on this podcast, Dr. Eric Dorninger, who was a mold expert. Mm-hmm. And the guy just understood the human body on a different level.
He's amazing.
Oh my God. He's incredible. And
and
he has a pretty cool story too. So, is that kind of part of your story?
It is, although, I'll just tell you my story briefly. Was I had a headache for 2 years. And so you have this chronic pain in your head, and literally I could feel it, see it changing my personality, changing my outlook every day. Every day I would wake up, and probably maybe an hour, 2 hours, it would be fine. And then it would come on, and it would come on with a vengeance, right? So I would have, my ears would close up, things would spin, I would be in the car and not knowing what's going on. And I'm not a normally anxious type of person, but when you don't know what's going on, is it a tumor? I did all of the testing. I did conventional, I did non-conventional, I did all of it. Ended up, it was TMD. Right. So I have a joint here that is pretty bad, which, has created, I also have, a curvature in my spine. So I think it's all connected. I tend to tell people that I'm biochemically really, really good, but biomechanically, I'm a little bit of a train wreck. So, but going through that, I mean, the types, all of the different types of therapies that I did to understand my body and to dig in and figure out what to do. The diets, the supplements, and I hate the word diets, but all of the things, I cleansed, I detoxed, I fasted. It was on and on and on, and I spent tons and tons and tons of money. And so my goal is, when I'm working with people, I want to dig. I want to spend money wisely,
right?
But I really want to take the time to dig for the root cause, so they're not out there going from therapy to supplement to supplement. We have people coming in with, bags of supplements going, what do I take? Right? Yeah. So I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but that's a little bit my history and how I, sort of did it all.
How'd you get it fixed? So I'm going to mispronounce and temporal mandibular joint dysfunction, right? So people will say I have TMJ. Well, TMJ is your joint, right? So the D is the dysfunction. So it's temporomandibular joint dysfunction. So for me, essentially, it just degenerated to the point where it started crushing that nerve back there. And so we had to, I found a dentist who and I'd been to another dentist. He didn't find it, but he said, I think I know what's going on, and I'm pretty sure
I can fix it, but I'm not sure. So, okay. And so that was what he did. So we moved my jaw around, moved it forward, and had to move my teeth around a bit so it could all sort of work together. So I've always had really perfectly straight teeth. And so I had Invisalign because we had to move my teeth around. Anyway, it's something that I'm still not to that degree, but I'm still, it's an everyday, part of my life now is the constant. I go back to Dallas to see my dentist so he can, help me to fix my night guard that is specific to me, that holds my jaw forward, and, all the things, I don't need to get too deep into it, but, it is that this is such a great example, I think, of the biomechanical affecting the mental and the emotional, which then can also affect the biochemical, and there's so many things that can go on when you have chronic pain. My husband broke his leg and had chronic pain for a long time. And I want to say this just because people who are out there dealing with chronic pain, it changes everything about you and it changes neural pathways. Oh, yeah. And so find somebody who's going to help you. I mean, that's what you guys do, right? In large part. So yeah, find somebody who's going to help you get out of it and not just give you drugs, because there's a reason for it. Hopefully you can, find somebody who can help you get it fixed, because it's a horrible place to be.
I love it when people are trying to figure out the why instead of what happened. Yeah. Right. Why did this happen to begin with? And that's another thing Dr. Doringer was big about, like why. Right. And I think that's awesome that you're trying to figure out the why. You're getting medical history. I'm really big into blue zones. I don't know if you huge into blue zones. And one of the things, like, doctors in certain villages and whatnot, like, they know the family history of medicine, back 2-3 generations. It's like, hey, this your mom had cancer and stuff like that, so they look for those kind of things.
Yeah.
We're missing a lot of that data.
Yeah, it's really important. I have taken a couple of 2 or 3 courses under Dr. Dornling. I can never say his name, but I've taken a couple of his courses.
I know. It took me a while. It's a N. The N is the tricky part.
It is.
Dorninger.
Yeah.
You got to really He's so cool, man. We got to have, I hope he hears this one. He's got to come back on the podcast sometime.
Well, she just had Terry Tucker last week.
Oh, really?
I did.
Terry's cool too. I love Terry and his wife are amazing.
Yeah.
I thought that podcast site you guys were using was a matchmaking site.
Right.
Matchmaker FM.
Yeah.
Did they find out what was causing it? Why that was it a genetic thing? Did they get into the root of, hey, this is why it degenerated because of a genetic abnormality?
I can only assume that it's because of the curve in my spine.
Do you have scoliosis? Okay.
Well, so I would say yes. It's a 30-degree curve.
Okay.
So, but I think that just sort of impacts everything.
Sure. Did you get diagnosed with that as a child?
No, not until just a few years ago. Somebody took my x-rays. I've had many x-rays before. And he's like, you've got a 30-degree curve in your spine? Nope. No idea.
That explains the back pain.
Yeah.
Do you have back pain at all? Or?
Yeah. I mean, it's manageable. And but I'm constantly stretching, and I go to the gym, and I'm trying to keep it strong. But, we were talking a little while ago about the little bit of stuff that I have going on. And I think that's, there's something that has to do with this joint. The muscles get super tight, and it's a constant just management of it, which it happens to a lot of people,
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the reason we started this podcast in general is to not only have health professionals like you on, but to have some of these stories, because, I think one of the big things that's come up a lot as we've had this podcast is chronic pain. Yep. We keep going back to chronic pain. A lot of the smartest, most intelligent people have become that way because they have experienced chronic pain. And so I always think about it as a blessing, right? It's a curse, and it's an obvious curse, But I mean, I think that pain sharpens you and it helps you find your purpose.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I it's something that I like to say all the time, because, the hard stuff is what builds us and makes us better and helps us to grow. If it wasn't for, having this issue, I might not be where I am now, and I might not be as excited about all the things that I do. But I wanted to kind of take it back too, is so much of it too is about keeping the inflammation down. So you've got to learn what it is that manages, that helps you to manage. But nutrition is going to be such a big piece of that, as well as, the building the muscles and understanding your, genetic or epigenetic potential, but, making sure that you're keeping the inflammation down, because inflammation just is going to, set things on fire.
So drop us some truth bombs. Obviously, Tripp is a certified nutritionist, and so you guys can nerd out on a lot of this stuff. But drop us some nutritional knowledge right now. Something that people are doing right now. You've mentioned inflammation. What else? What is the big thing right now you're seeing? What's the trend? What should people be doing? What should they be focusing on? What do you see people getting wrong a lot?
So there's still and this is going to sound really basic, but there's still the thought that gluten-free is a fad. When gluten, especially here in the United States, is it's not the food that it used to be. And so it does create an inflammatory response. And so when it comes to, dealing with people with autoimmune conditions, I'm not a black and white hardcore person, right? Because everybody's so unique and individual. But if you have an autoimmune condition, gluten is never, ever a part of your diet, period. No matter what, hands down for the rest of your life. It's just the way that it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And gluten meaning any wheat, just stay away from all
wheat, rye,
dough,
barley,
wheat, processed stuff. So what do you lean one way or the other? This person should be on carnivore. This person should be vegan. What's your thought processes on diagnosing somebody for a particular type of diet? Is it totally individualistic? Is there a process behind that? Yeah,
I hate diet, but I do think that there are some diets that are therapeutic. I see keto is therapeutic. I see, low FODMAP is therapeutic. And so there are times when I'll work with people, depending on their situation, on specific types of therapeutic diets. I even see vegan as a type of therapeutic diet, but these aren't a lifestyle, in my opinion. They're hard to maintain, for one. But, with being vegan, you're just missing too many things. But sometimes you've got to, really quickly get inflammation down, and, being vegan for a bit can do that. But really depends on the person and what's going on. I run labs. I want to understand what's going on. But, if it's not just about the nutrient deficiencies, for me, especially dealing with GI and autoimmune, it's what is creating the nutrient deficiencies. Toxicity leads to deficiency. So are they toxic? Do they have a microbial infection, a parasite, a worm? People don't like to know that they have worms, but we have, we have worms. We have mold toxicity and mycotoxin exposures. We've got environmental toxicants and, all of these things that epigenetically, some people may not have the ability to handle them the way that others do. You talk about mycotoxin exposures. You can have one person in a home with mycotoxins and another person, one reacts to them, the other one doesn't. Yeah. And so that's an epigenetic variant, right? It's going to predispose them to more of have more effects on them and more symptoms. And so that's always my underlying is understand the why, what's going on, what's creating the issue or issues in the first place, and then getting them out of that place. And then we start doing repletion of nutrients and, whatever it is that needs to happen up here. But I want to get to that root, eliminate it, right? And then if it's something that needs to be eliminated, and then the body can do the rest. So I'm trying to help the body do what it's supposed to do instead of focusing on this constant insult.
You mentioned mycotoxins and stuff, and then you mentioned you knew Dr. Eric. How are you connected to him, and how are you connected to that? Is that something you've seen clients have, like mold exposure, or is that something? Okay.
Oh yeah.
You've seen that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's rampant. And now even here in Colorado, where we're a pretty dry climate, people can still have mold exposures. And so it can be through food, it can be through your environment, through your office, through school. It can be everywhere. And so I don't know Dr. Dornlinger.
It's a tough one. Dr. D.
Yeah, there you go.
Dr.
There
D.
you go. Yeah. I don't know him like one-on-one. I don't know if he would remember me. I've had conversations, a couple of small conversations, but really it's been, I'm the student, he's the teacher. And I've been in his I don't know. I think 3 of his 3-day seminars.
Okay.
And a lot of it is based on, gosh, I don't even remember now. I think it was metabolic testing, and and that's one of the things that I know about him is he's the true seeker and the true digger, right? He is literally finding, he's got the people who are coming to him that are the worst of the worst, the multiple chemical sensitivities, the all of these things, and their body is just completely haywire, and then he can take it and he can dig. And that's how I learned so much about what I do is just these people who taught me you just got to keep digging.
Interesting. That's cool too, because that's how he, not only him, I love that we've talked about him so much on this podcast. It's like it pays homage to people who've spent their lives, right, dedicating to helping others.
Yeah.
He followed Dr. Richie Shoemaker, the Shoemaker protocol, which was, the world famous, which is still today the top, analysis of mold, black mold. And that was part where he learned it from, which is cool to see the lineage of information being passed along, because like we don't own any of it.
Yeah.
It's just art. And he used one of my favorite words ever, which I never heard, diagnostician. I was like, oh, I love that. It just sounds so good. He used it, and it just made sense. Like, hey, I want to figure out, because we know, we picture like a car mechanic, right? We have cars, like what's going wrong with this car? But who are the people that figures out what's going wrong with our body? Our bodies are infinitely and exponentially more complicated than a car.
Yeah. And
so I think it's cool to be in this realm that you're in right now on the nutrition side, and Tripp and myself on a different side, and Dr. D and some of these other people starting to come together and us to see these crossovers. Let me ask you a industry question then for you that I wanted to get into. What's the deal with GI issues? They're more prevalent than ever. It's obviously crazy. Look at any study, especially in women, right? When, I don't know what the statistic is. I'd like to say 3 out of 4 women have GI issues, right? What's the deal with that? Is that the pesticides we're using? Is it the low quality food? What is it?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. All of the above.
I think it's all of it. We're in an environment where, the body's becoming, I don't know if I can say more sensitive to foods. And I'm not saying that right, because it's not right. It's reacting to the environment, right? And if it's reacting to the foods, it's because of the environment. Usually, people ask me, or it's almost always, I need to do food sensitivity test. Usually that's not the case. And I love food sensitivity testing. It can give us a lot of really good information. But usually it's, if we are sensitive to all kinds of things, it's an immune response. It's not a response. It's not a food response, right? So the immune system's pissed off. And so yeah, there's an uptick, a significant uptick in autoimmune conditions. I've had multiple ulcerative colitis clients over the past, year or so. And they're having no issues. And then this super acute onset of UC, which is so interesting to me. But then, again, it goes back to, are we, mycotoxin exposure can create GI issues. Bacterial infections can create GI issues. An imbalance of bacteria can create GI issues. Things like gluten and dairy can create GI issues. Parasites and worms. I mean, I see parasites all the time. Worms are hard to detect. So we just get rid of them anyway. But, we see these things all the time. And the thing is too, we talk about parasites and worms and we freak out. It's not like these things are totally abnormal. They're not supposed to be in us, but we've come to this place where we don't eat traditional foods like we used to. We'll willy-nilly, deworm our pets, which I think is a problem too, but we don't willy-nilly deworm ourselves. And so we're not eating these foods that help the body to eliminate parasites, eliminate worms. And we're taking things like, PPIs, acid blockers that don't allow the acid in our body that's supposed to be there to do its job, that regulates parasites and worms and bacterial overgrowth. And so there's lots of things that are happening. Just, it's the drugs that we take and the drugs that we are told are super safe. Tums, people pop Tums like candy.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do think it's candy because it's sweet, right? So they're getting an overload of calcium that doesn't have all of the other synergistic nutrients that tells calcium where to go. So we're getting too much calcium built up, I don't know, in our vasculature, in our brains, in our breasts, in our kidneys. And then though we're squashing the fire, the acid that's supposed to be there that helps us to control all of the things that we're wanting to keep out of our body.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Do you get into like the evolution of like the gut bacteria? I mean, we live with viruses in our stomach, right? We coexist peacefully with millions and actually trillions of viruses that have a symbiotic relationship with us. And, in order for our food to digest, we have bacteria in our gut. Is there some sort of like, is there a truth to the evolution of our gut bacteria? How do we like regulate our gut bacteria? Do we have any control over our gut bacteria? How do we improve that? What's our process behind understanding that? And then, taking that to the next step.
So we certainly have control over it because, when we decide to take a bunch of, whether it's over-the-counter prescription medication, that's going to affect our gut bacteria. If we are eating good, healthy foods with good, healthy fiber, that's going to affect our gut bacteria. If we're taking probiotics and prebiotics, it's going to affect our gut bacteria. But going back to it, our trauma can affect our gut bacteria. Stress can affect our gut bacteria. And once you start to have that little bit of imbalance, then it can create more of an imbalance, which then can allow for your opportunistic and your pathogenic to grow out of balance. Do you want me to describe what that means?
Yeah. So just talk about that. What does that mean? Trauma and stress affects your gut bacteria? Because I guess that kind of makes sense, right? Like, how is that possible?
Well, so if we take it to like its very basics, the key to all of this, the biggest factor is stress. So stress is inflammatory and stress is going to affect every part of us. So when we think of stress, we're thinking, okay, I have work stress and I have family stress and I have this relationship stress, right? But inflammation creates stress, which creates more inflammation, which creates more stress. So an imbalance of bacteria is going to create stress, creating more imbalance, creating more stress, right? So it's these, and you can look at it, thyroid dysfunction creates stress, creates more thyroid dysfunction, right? So you can, and then everything's connected. So you can say, and then it's going to go to the pituitary and then to the adrenals and then so on and on and on. So really at the I don't know if it's at the top or at the bottom, but really it's controlling that stress, but understanding that everything comes back to stress. And I have to put out there because it's so important. Stress shrinks the brain. So if we're chronically stressed, which many of us are, it literally is shrinking our brain. And I think, I learned that from Dr. Dornlinger. But,
I'm sending him this episode. That's the first thing. Dr. D, we dropped your name 75 times.
Yeah, I know.
We love you, man.
But yeah, so the stress of the trauma can impact the microbiome. That's the beautiful thing about the microbiome, though, is it can change quickly, good or bad. It changes quickly. But having an understanding that the microbiome is 70% of our immune system. The microbiome or the gut produces 90% of our serotonin, which we think is a neurotransmitter that's produced in the brain, right? It's not. It's produced in the gut.
Say that again. I want that to be highlight that again.
90% of our serotonin is produced in the gut.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's this beautiful, we talk about the gut-brain connection, right? But it really is beautiful. Which one's more important? Well, there's not. I know I have my chiropractor friends, they're brain-based chiropractors like, no, it's the brain. I'm like, no, it's the gut. But it's really the same because the tissue's the same. It's connected by the vagus nerve. And, if we have, which happens a lot, vagal nerve dysfunction, it's going to affect your brain. It's going to affect your gut. And so we have to, this is why we can never take it all apart. We have to keep it all together because everything's connected and everything affects everything. And, I have such respect for the most part for conventional medicine because they're so great at acute care. But there also is a problem with this disconnection of the body, right? I only work in cardiovascular health. I only work in nephrology. I only do this. And so when I'm doing all this up here, I'm not paying attention to what it does down here, you know, downstream, which is a huge problem. And I think that we have to consider the entire body, mind, you know, physical, mental, emotional, all of it when we're working with people.
There's two things I wanted to add. So yeah, number one, about 90% of the serotonin in the body is produced in the cell lining of the gastrointestinal tract, particularly in the some long word I can't pronounce, cells of the intestine. That's interesting. Wow, look at
you're a fast researcher.
Ooh, I have done this. I've done this a lot. So that's pretty fantastic. So yeah, I didn't know that. That is very interesting. The second part that you said is, yeah, it is a system. You're right. We have specialists, like a foot specialist, and we have a heart specialist, but you know, we're trying to look at all these things now as a system and how they affect each other. I want to go back to stress because that's my bread and butter, stress. So I know wholeheartedly what you said to be true, right? Like stress is the number one cause of all of our happiness and all our sorrows. And our stress is how we react to the situations around us. So there's a great book by a guy, Dr. Viktor Frankl, called Man's Search for Meaning. I think it was a bestseller. And he was a psychiatrist that went through Auschwitz. His whole family was exterminated, and he was the only one to survive. Lived and wrote a book about man's search for meaning, past horrific stuff like that. And the reason I bring it up is like it's our perspective. And I'm going to ask a question at the end of this, but I would just want to frame this correctly. So it's our perspective that creates the stress in our mind. Taking into consideration where the world is today, with cell phones being ubiquitous, with communication being instantaneous, those are all added stressors. With the world we have today, how do you approach this with your clients? We know we have all these extra stressors. How in the world does someone in your position identify these stresses within their clients and then approach to alleviate some of these?
It's certainly not easy because everybody does deal with stress differently, right? They deal with their environment differently. And so, especially since, you know, the mental and the emotional piece is not my, not where I'm great, right? It's just not where I'm trained, but I'm trained enough to know that there are some basics. Go sit still, be quiet. I don't care if it's in the shower, you know, away from the kids, away from everything, go sit and be still for a while. And I try to tell my clients, you know, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, and just start. And when people tell me, it's the constant pushback. I can't meditate. I don't know how to meditate. My brain never gets quiet. Nobody's brain is actually quiet, right? I mean, you can get to a point to where, yeah, you can go deep into meditation and there is a quietness, but it's a practice for everyone. And just to give pushback on something that can be so profoundly important to changing your body from, you know, the sympathetic fight or flight, go, 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 I'm being chased, I'm going to, you know, all of these things are happening, and bringing it back to the parasympathetic where it's calm, your body is ready to rest, it's ready to digest, it's ready to do what it's supposed to do. You know, anyway, I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but it's a game changer for just getting through the day. So I talk to my clients, I'm saying, you know, depending on where I'm a prayer. I try to pray as often as I can. I'm always trying to talk to God, you know,
for sure,
just tell me what to do here. Cause yeah, a lot of times I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever that looks like for that person, you know, but pray, read your Bible, go walk in the grass, you know, get out in the sun, stop avoiding the sun, stop wearing the sunscreen all the time, stop having fear over these things that you can't control. Now, I know sometimes there are, you know, these imbalances, I don't know if that's really a correct term, but where, you know, we have the the play that just runs over and over and over in our head. And so we've got to learn how to control that as well. So there's a lot to it. I make it sound simple. It's not simple. I think, as probably most of us know, but it's also just taking the time and practicing. It's all a practice.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah. It's tough because, like I said, stress is the number one thing I see with clients coming in is, trying to achieve this level of fitness and then figure out, oh my God, this person's so stressed out. If they just remove these stressors from their lives, they're going to be better. Stress, we could do an entire episode on stress. It's literally the difference between surviving and dying as you go through cancer.
Yeah.
It's literally the difference. Your positive mentality and outlook on life and your perspective on it will have more of it, almost as much as the nutrients you put in your body. It literally is the dialogue that goes through your head. It's tough to figure out how to change it. I think the easiest way for us, is to have these enlightened conversations, right? And to have these with your clients. I'm assuming you have these types of conversations regularly.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's a book that I've had on my shelf for probably a couple of years, and I finally, I think 2 weeks ago, read it. Do you know who Louise Hay is?
Yeah. Yes. Remind me or give the listeners some.
So she is all about, essentially, I hope I say this well, right? But it's how mindset affects us physically. And I think the name of the book is just simple, Heal Yourself. And it's a really small, tiny little simple guidebook on each condition, each pain, each whatever. It even goes down all the vertebra in your back, what it's connected to. And each thing is usually something that's in your history, right? Something that has shown up. Did you find the book? Is that what it's called?
Yep. Heal Yourself.
Heal Yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. And then she tells you how to say the right things in your mind, the positive things, to allow for that physical ailment to start to move in a different direction. So I say this because it was so profound to me that it seems really simple, and you're like, what? Is that really true?
Yeah.
But what I think I want to do with this little book at this point is send one to each of my clients. And every new client who comes in, send this book to them, because we don't think about mindset playing such a key role in our physical health or our whatever we've had in our history. Or is it generational history? You were talking about Auschwitz. That stuff sticks in our DNA for years, which is why I love preconception planning, right? Because we can impact the future. But having the right mental space, or at least working on the right mental space, because we all have things to work on. It's again going back to being a practice, but it's important to have that realization. I think that it's more than I just need a vitamin, or I just need to go see this practitioner, or eat this food, or keep beating myself up because I keep eating gluten, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm not. So are you, what religion particular?
Christian.
Okay. And have you been a Christian for your whole life, or?
Yeah. I mean, that's just how I grew up, but only in the last, 5 years, really kind of trying to dig in and create that relationship and do a lot more talking and try to do a lot more listening and, all of the things.
Yeah, for sure. I try to be better myself. I would like to be. I know how important it is to let go of in order to heal ourselves, we have to let go of our control over the things we can't control. What is the prayer? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can change, courage change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Psychologically, that makes so much sense, right? Like there's so much that we take on. I'm kind of laying on this stress point just for a little bit longer before we transition. There's so much we take on that isn't ours to take on. We have the world. And I think that's huge when we can realize the controllables in our life. I'm picturing your clients coming to you. I'm picturing you having these conversations and helping them to realize, because it's those aha moments. whether it's an addict who's coming to you, which, sugar addict who doesn't know how to, and they're having that aha moment. For me, that's why I'm in the business. What is there any moment you can think of, or something inspiring to you? Maybe it's the most inspiring story you've heard, or the best client success, or something that gets you out of bed in the morning.
So I have a couple, but this is probably my favorite because it really creates this pretty picture around the amazingness of food. And how it can be great and not so great. So I have a client, she was a young client, 18, out of Mexico. And I had gone down there for a women's summit, going, hanging out, I was speaking, and we're having some fun. But this mom came to me and she said, I really would love her if you could see my daughter. And I didn't expect to do any work there. It was just kind of, doing the thing, which is fine. And so we did. And so basically she's 5'9", 90 pounds. She can't put weight on. She's depressed. She's got anxiety. She's got some thoughts that we shouldn't have at 18 or any other time.
Yeah.
And so it's why is all of this happening? So, you go through the process. Okay, we're going to get these labs done. The beautiful thing is we did do some epigenetic testing on her. But what we did, right, so you have this period of time in between doing labs and getting the results. And what are you going to do in the meantime? Well, it depends on the situation. But for her, we took out gluten, dairy, and sugar, and corn, and soy, and eggs. In that 2-week period, she was a different person.
You took out eggs too, huh?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
What was your thought process on eggs? Was it just I wanted to eliminate them because they can cause inflammatory? What was that?
Yeah. So eggs are one of the top 5 most sensitivity causing foods.
Oh, interesting.
You call it sensitivity or allergy, but I mean, those are 2 different parts of the immune system. So they're 2 different things. But people, so they can be really problematic. I think they're wonderful food for people who can take them. Right.
Gotcha.
So, anyway, so to try to, bring it all together is just getting rid of these foods. And I think the biggest ones, I think it was gluten and dairy were her 2, especially gluten was really big for her. What is amazing though, is when we got her testing back, we obviously had things that we had to work on, but it was her epigenetic testing where we saw variants that predisposed her to autoimmune disease and specifically celiac disease. So did we, and probably, and this is her and her mom, right? I was just sort of a little bit of the guide, but keep her from a lifetime of sickness because hopefully we got to it prior to the point. Now, my bet is she probably had some antibodies that were creating problems for her, but hopefully we got her in, where she's just set up for a lifetime of health. And she went to nutrition school.
She's like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I've created another.
Right, exactly. We need as many as we can get.
Oh, that is a good story.
Yeah.
That is a great story. That's it's a legacy. You're like, all right, because then that person helps. You're like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's a movement going on right now. It's big.
It is big.
It's big.
And it's really fun to be a part of it. I'm not really quite sure where we are on that wave, but people, we've got people in the healthcare industry whose eyes are opening up to where medicine can fail. And we've got people opening up to understanding that the food they eat makes a difference. And, if they can't figure it out, they need to find the help that's going to help them, and that the insurance companies aren't doing people any favors. So yeah, I mean, going back to basics, it's, whatever area we're in, it really is that root cause medicine. It's understanding the why, whether it's the biomechanical or all of the things that we've been talking about. Because there are answers, and that's what I want people to really hear is there are answers. And you may get run through the system and get really frustrated, but there are answers. You just got to find people who are going to help you find them.
So is this for, anybody? Is this just for the rich? Are you so expensive? Like, can somebody come and see you? You know what I mean? Because that's a lot of the problem is like, people are like, I'm a working person. You're right, but I want to see you and use you, but I can't afford it. Like, how do they, is there a way?
It's hard, you know. It is really hard. I'm not inexpensive, but my goal is to be able to help where I can, you know. And you know, we were talking about this with Trip earlier. Is I'm always online. I'm always doing lives. I've got my radio show. I'm always putting out content. I'm always trying to give as much information as I possibly can to people who are hearing it and wanting to listen to it. So that's my goal is to give however I can give. Yeah. But working one-on-one, you know, because it's a process. It's a lot of time on my part. It's a lot of time on a client's part to really take the time to dig, to understand, to make the changes. And it's not like, you know, I would love to say that, you know, as we're going through it, that we're just up and up and up and everybody's, you know, body's doing great, but the body's dynamic, right? And so we can go through, you know, these situations where health, it doesn't decline, you know, we call them health crisis, where things can get really bumpy and they go up and down and up and down and up and down. But as long as we're on an upward trajectory, that's what matters. But, you know, people who've got some really chronic stuff going on, you know, we're looking at 6 months to, you know, however long. I mean, I've got clients that have been with me for, you know, the entire time I've been with them. And that's mostly for maintenance stuff, right? You know, we can get through a lot of the chronic stuff once we're figuring it out. But, you know, this is stuff that people take with them for a lifetime. It's not like I'm saying, okay, we're going to, you know, give up gluten and, you know, and all of these, you know, little things. This is a lifetime of change. And I want people to learn and understand their body the best that they possibly can so they can take that with them and be healthy for a lifetime and share it with their friends and their family and their kids so that they can be healthy for a lifetime. Again, everybody's individual, but you know, I want people to have an understanding. You were talking about the aha moments. You know, my favorite thing is when I see clients and when I see that light bulb or that aha moment and they learn what their body's trying to tell them. That's what I want, is for people to be able to say, okay, I got it. I got what my body's trying to do or what it's trying to say. Because it's always talking to us, always. We just got to learn how to listen.
You hear that, guys? That's you. What is your body saying to you? No, that's actually a great point, and I've echoed the same sentiment. I love that. So we're doing a really cool project with a company right now where we want to give kids the opportunity to learn this stuff early on, right? Like they have health classes or whatnot, and you know, some may be good, some may not be good. But we're going to work together to setting up a program this week where we actually have kids that are mentored directly by professionals. So they'll actually do like an apprenticeship with somebody who's involved with them. But not only that, not only do they get to see that, they'll get to experience different. So they'll get to experience not only, you know, like a nutritionist, but they'll see a personal trainer. They'll so they'll get all these different professionals. Then on top of that, they're going to get certified. So we're going to get them certified while they're in high school. So they're going to have a walkout with a personal training certification when they graduate high school.
Very cool.
So that's our goal, though. What do you think? Would you be interested if I send you some more information on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
All right.
It's amazing.
It was a passion project that kind of started, and I haven't really seen anything out there like that like gives kids an opportunity to do something they love and they're passionate about. The other thing that came up in my mind when you were talking was there's no power and energy and chi that we can harness like the kind we can when we first get out of pain, right? When we first get out of sorrow, whether it be, you know, a loved one passing, or maybe, hey, we're losing weight finally, maybe whatever it is. There's no energy and power that is quite like that power. And so I guess, you know, in both of our fields, we're always trying to search for ways that we can give that to our clients, give that to the people who trust us and value our knowledge, and give them that opportunity so that they can pass the buck along. What is your next step with your business? You know, you're working with clients now. What's the ultimate goal? Paint me a picture of your final mission. Are you happy with what you're doing now? Is it going somewhere?
Yeah. What I see is Soulful Conception, which is my preconception planning program, is a movement. And it really is creating awareness around the fact that we have an amazing amount of control over our own health, but we have control over the health of the future. And to take that and to take it to heart and know that it's up to me. And so that's what I see, and that's what I want. I want to. We're in a space now where we're full of fear. We're full of frustration. We don't know, about our own health, and we certainly don't know what to do, a lot of times with our kids, and then kids are in schools and eating, trash and then there are the drugs, I could go on and on and on. It's a whole thing. But it, if you understand preconception planning, again, you take it with you for a lifetime. And then of course it impacts generations of lifetimes. And so that's my big, it's kind of weird to say it, in this public space where I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people hear it. Right. But Soulful Conception is a movement. It's,
I
becomes
love that.
Big. Yeah.
That is so cool. So, speak directly to somebody out there, whether it be somebody struggling, whether it be somebody who is going through chronic pain, somebody maybe wants to get certified, they're thinking about being a nutritionist. Leave us, before we transition, with some final words, some thoughts to people who are listening to this. Maybe they're making breakfast, maybe they're driving to work. They're looking for something, right? Nobody would turn on a podcast that isn't looking for something. So leave us with something from your heart.
I have a couple of things. I think the one that it sounds really simple, but it's not always simple, is always ask why, right? So you have a diagnosis, ask why. You have a pain, ask why. And somebody gives you an answer, ask why. Always ask why. And the more conferences, the more research, the more you have my own, education that I do for myself, I learn, there's another level. Keep asking why, and don't settle. Right? Don't settle for the drug. Don't settle for this is what it is, and you have no choice, because there very often is a choice. We have amazing, miraculous, stories of people who made a choice and it was not what everybody expected. Right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Perfect sense. Yeah.
And I think the last thing is, treat your body like the miracle that it is. I think that everything about where we live and who we are and what we do and, the universe and all these things. I mean, the fact that everything is so perfectly aligned is all just miraculous in and of itself. But the way our bodies work, the beauty of our body, the beauty of the way that it can handle it when we maybe do some things that we shouldn't be doing, and what it gives us, and all of these things about it, it's a miracle, right? We think that miracles don't happen anymore, but we've got the miracle of creation, right? We create little people all the time. Mm-hmm. What an amazing miracle. Mm-hmm. And so and I'm certainly not perfect. So I don't want anybody to ever think that I, eat perfectly and do all the perfect things, because I don't. But I do believe that my body is a miracle, and I try to think of it that way. I get frustrated, right? It happens. But I do try to think about it that way. I think I, try to put the food in that I think it's going to eat. And I'm always learning. I'm actually doing my show this week on food and diets and genetics and that kind of thing, because there's so much misunderstanding around what our bodies need and trying to figure out what our bodies need. And it's so different depending on the person and the environment. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's amazing to just continue to learn and grow.
I love that. That's what a great thought. Where can people find you? Throw out some plugs for people. And if you'd like them to have your personal email or a work email, or any way to contact you, or a website, why don't you plug that right now so they can find you?
So the easiest thing is Taste Life Nutrition. So it's my website's tastelifenutrition.com. All of the social medias, Taste Life Nutrition. My number, my email, everything's going to be on the website. It's all right there. Is that good enough? Just make it easy instead.
Oh, I think that's perfect. Yeah, you'll find it. It's a wonderful picture of you.
It's a couple of years old.
Looking happy as ever. And a cool figurine with some tree leaves over the top of it.
That's our cherry tree.
That is beautiful. It's perfect. And there's a number at the top that they can contact you, and I'm assuming set up an appointment with you.
Yeah, I do have a free assessment on there. I'm hoping we had to have it moved to the top, but it's a free assessment. It's a quickie overlook at the body, the functions, what's going on, and if you fill it out, I reach out to you personally. We chat about it and see if I can help or if I know somebody who can.
That's amazing. All right, great. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Health or High Water. We wish you to be well, and we're excited to have you back on our next episode. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Awesome. That was fun.
That was
really good job.
Thanks.